My name is Michael Thompson. I am 72 years old, and I used to think there was not much left in this world that could truly shock me. I was wrong about that. I never thought that putting in a doorbell camera, just to double-check my own forgetfulness, would end up proving that my own son and the woman he planned to marry were trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. When I finally sat down and reviewed the recordings 3 days later, I realized something that shook me to my core. I was not losing my mind. Someone was making me lose it. This all started about 6 months after my wife, Carol, passed away from cancer. We were married for 47 years, almost half a century. When she died, it felt like someone had scooped the center out of my life and left the rest standing there, hollow. Our house in Richmond Hill, just north of Toronto, suddenly felt too big, too quiet. The garden she had cared for so lovingly looked wild and neglected. The flower beds were overgrown, and the wilted plants seemed like they were accusing me every time I stepped outside. My only child, my son Andrew, was 43 at the time. He had just gone through a rough divorce. It was ugly and expensive. His ex-wife got the house in Vancouver, and from what little he told me, the legal costs drained most of what he had saved. Andrew never liked talking about money. Even as a boy, he kept that kind of thing to himself. About 4 months after Carol died, Andrew called me with news that, for the first time in a long while, lifted my spirits. He had met someone. Her name was Brittany Collins. The way he talked about her, you would think she had stepped right out of a dream. She was 38, a certified financial advisor, smart, attractive, kind. Most important of all, she made my son smile again. I met Brittany on a Sunday afternoon in late September. Andrew brought her over for dinner. I spent the whole morning trying to make Carol's pot roast. I never could get it quite the way she did, but I gave it my best shot. When they arrived, Brittany walked in like she owned the place. She wore a cream-colored suit that looked expensive, and her blonde hair was pulled back tight into a neat bun. She hugged me warmly, like we had known each other for years. Her perfume was strong, sweet and floral, almost too much. It made my nose itch, but I did not let that show. I just smiled and told her I was glad she was there. At dinner, she asked thoughtful questions. How was I handling the loss? Was it hard living alone in such a big house? Had I thought about what I might need in the future in terms of care? I took her questions as concern. She seemed sincere. I could understand why Andrew had fallen for her. Then small things began to happen. At first, it was my keys. I had always kept them in the same place, in a small ceramic bowl by the front door. Carol made that bowl years ago in a pottery class. I never moved my keys from there. But suddenly I started finding them in strange spots. On the kitchen counter. Once in the bathroom. One time, unbelievably, inside the refrigerator. Then it was my wallet. I would put it in the inside pocket of my jacket. Later, I would find it sitting on my bedside table. I started to get scared. My father had developed dementia in his 80s. It began with little things just like this. Misplaced items. Gaps in memory. Confusion about what day it was. I mentioned it to Andrew during one of his weekly phone calls. He sounded worried. At least that is what I believed at the time. Looking back, I can see that was the moment things truly began to move in a certain direction. By November, the strange incidents were happening more often. I would forget appointments that I did not even remember making. I found notes written in my own handwriting, and I had no memory of writing them. Worst of all were the stretches of missing time. I would sit down with the morning newspaper, and the next thing I knew it would be mid-afternoon. Hours gone. Just gone. Andrew suggested I see a doctor. I agreed. Dr. Susan Harper had been our family physician for 20 years. She ran every test she could think of. Cognitive assessments. Blood work. Everything came back normal. She told me stress and grief can do powerful things to the mind, especially in widowers my age. She suggested grief counseling. She gently mentioned that maybe I should consider not living alone. That was when Brittany became a more regular presence in my life. She began stopping by often, sometimes with Andrew, sometimes by herself. She would bring groceries, help tidy up, sit at the kitchen table, and talk with me about Carol, about the past. She was attentive and polite. I found myself looking forward to her visits. The house felt less empty when she was there. In early December, she suggested upgrading my home security. She said she had read about elderly people being targeted by scammers and break-ins. Richmond Hill was a safe area, she admitted, but you could never be too cautious. Why not install a doorbell camera? That way I could see who was outside before opening the door. Andrew could also check on me remotely if I did not answer my phone. It sounded reasonable, thoughtful even. Andrew ordered one online and installed it himself one Saturday afternoon. He showed me how it worked, how it recorded activity at the door, how I could view the footage on my phone. But I have never been good with modern technology. The application was confusing. After he left, I barely touched it. What I did not realize was that the camera could see more than just the porch. Through the window beside the front door, part of my living room was visible. And I had no idea that Andrew had turned off the motion notifications on my phone so I would not be alerted when recordings were made. The week before Christmas, my health seemed to take a turn for the worse. I began having severe headaches. Waves of dizziness would hit me out of nowhere. My hands trembled. My thoughts felt slow and cloudy. Sometimes that fog would last for hours. Dr. Harper ran more tests. Once again, nothing clear showed up. She wondered if my blood pressure medication might be the cause and adjusted the dosage. But the symptoms did not stop. On December 20th, Andrew and Brittany came over for what they called an important discussion. We sat in the living room. The Christmas tree stood in the corner, half decorated, its colored lights blinking softly. Andrew held my hand and spoke in a slow, gentle voice, the way you talk to a child. He said he was worried. My forgetfulness was getting worse. I had called him 3 times the previous week asking the same question. I had left the stove on twice. The day before, I had supposedly invited the mail carrier inside for coffee and told him long, rambling stories about serving in a war, even though I had never been in the military. I did not remember any of it. The empty spaces in my memory frightened me more than I can describe. Brittany leaned forward, her face full of concern. She said she had been researching my symptoms. She believed I should think about getting a long-term care evaluation. There were excellent facilities nearby, she said. Places where I would be safe, where professionals could monitor me around the clock. A nursing home. My chest tightened. I was 72 years old, not 90. I still drove. I paid my own bills. I handled my own life. This felt extreme. But Andrew was insistent. He had already scheduled an appointment for January 5th with a geriatric psychiatrist, Dr. William Parker, one of the best in the city. Just an evaluation, he promised. No decisions would be made without me. I agreed, though my stomach churned as I said the words. After they left, I sat alone in the dark living room. The Christmas lights blinked quietly. I felt the weight of my own mortality pressing down on me. Was I truly slipping away the way my father had? The idea terrified me more than death itself. The next morning, December 21st, I woke with another pounding headache. I shuffled into the kitchen to make coffee and accidentally knocked over the bottle of pills near the sink. My blood pressure tablets spilled across the counter. As I picked them up, I froze. They looked different. The bottle was the same. The label was the same. But the pills seemed slightly smaller. The color was a different shade of white. I held one up to the light and turned it between my fingers. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe this was just more proof that my mind was failing. Still, something did not feel right. I moved through that day in a haze. By evening, the fog lifted a little. I sat in my recliner trying to focus on the hockey game when I suddenly remembered the doorbell camera. Andrew had said it recorded everything. When was the last time I checked it? I picked up my phone and searched for the application. It took me nearly 20 minutes to remember the password, but eventually I got in. The screen was cluttered with icons and menus I barely understood. After some trial and error, I found the recording history. There were dozens of clips, maybe hundreds. I started opening them at random, fast-forwarding past delivery drivers and neighbors walking their dogs. Then I found a recording dated December 18th, 3 days earlier. And that is when everything changed. The timestamp on the video said 2:15 in the afternoon. I pressed play. There she was, Brittany walking up to my front door. She did not knock. She did not ring the bell. She took out a key and unlocked the door. I sat up straight in my chair. I did not remember giving her a key. The camera caught her stepping into the foyer. She had that big leather purse on her shoulder. Before moving farther inside, she glanced around carefully, like she was making sure nobody was watching. Then she walked toward the kitchen and disappeared out of view. For several minutes, the hallway on the screen stayed empty. Nothing moved. Then Brittany came back into frame. She was walking faster now. She stopped at the small table in the hallway. I saw her pick up an envelope, look it over, then place it back exactly where it had been. Then she left. I stared at the screen. Why would she come to my house when I was not there? Or had I been there and simply not remembered? My heart started pounding. I scrolled through more recordings. December 16th. 1:40 in the afternoon. Brittany again, unlocking the door, staying inside for about 20 minutes. December 13th. 11:30 in the morning. December 9th. Every few days, she came over alone. Always when Andrew was not with her. Then I found a recording from December 14th that made my blood run cold. 3:20 in the afternoon. Both of them showed up that time. I saw the door open. I heard their voices, faint and scratchy through the tiny speaker on my phone. I turned the volume up as high as it would go and held the phone right against my ear. Brittany's voice came through first. "Did you switch them?" Andrew answered, quieter. "Yeah. This morning. Same bottle. He will never notice." My stomach dropped. "What about the dosage?" she asked. Dr. Chin said his tolerance might be lower at his age. "It is fine," Andrew replied. "Half a tablet in his coffee is enough. By next week he will be so confused he will not be able to dress himself." My hand started shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I replayed it. Once, twice, 3 times. Every time I hoped I had misunderstood. That my mind, already slipping, was twisting their words. But the recording did not change. They were drugging me. I sat there in the dark living room. The television kept playing the hockey game to an empty room. I barely noticed. My son. My only child. The boy I had taught to ride a bicycle. The kid I had helped with homework. The man I had raised to tell the truth. He was poisoning me. I forced myself to keep watching. I needed to know how far this went. The December 14th recording continued. The camera could not see much beyond the hallway, but the microphone picked up pieces of their conversation as they moved around the house. Brittany said, "The appointment with Dr. Parker is confirmed for January 5th. I already spoke with him about the symptoms." Andrew asked, "You are sure he will approve the assessment?" "Trust me," she said. "I have worked with him before. Once he sees your father confused and disoriented, he will recommend immediate guardianship, especially after I show him the documentation." Andrew paused. "What documentation?" "The incidents I have been logging. Him inviting strangers inside, leaving appliances on, acting erratic. I have detailed notes." There was a silence. Then Andrew spoke again, and this time he sounded unsure. "You really think this is the only way?" Brittany's voice changed. It was no longer soft and sweet. It was sharp. "We have already discussed this. Your father is sitting on a $2 million house and another $1 million in investments. Once he is declared incompetent and you have guardianship, we sell the property, liquidate the accounts, and start over. Your divorce wiped you out. We need this." "I know, but..." "No. He is 72. He could live another 15 years in some facility, draining money on private care. This way we secure your inheritance now, while there is still something left. And honestly, with his age and the grief, he would probably need help eventually. We are just speeding things up." I had to stop the video. I could not breathe. It felt like someone had placed a heavy weight on my chest. This was not about protecting me. This was about money. My money. They were building a fake case that I was mentally incompetent so they could take everything. I thought about Carol. About the years we worked hard and saved every extra dollar. About the life insurance policy she insisted on, the one that paid off this house. We had built that savings so I would never have to depend on anyone. And now my own son was trying to steal it. I stayed up the rest of the night watching every single recording. By 4 in the morning, I understood the full plan. It started back in early November. Brittany would come over when I was out running errands or during my afternoon naps. I had only started taking those naps recently because of the overwhelming exhaustion. Now I knew why I was so tired. She moved things around on purpose. My keys, my wallet. She hid items and placed them in strange locations. She took my appointment book and changed dates, carefully copying my handwriting so it would look like I had done it myself. She even called Dr. Harper's office pretending to be me. She made appointments I knew nothing about. Then she would call again and cancel them in a confused, rambling way to create a record of instability. And the pills. I watched Andrew switch out my blood pressure medication. I could not tell exactly what he replaced it with from the video, but considering the dizziness, confusion, trembling, and missing time, I suspected some kind of sedative. Maybe even a low-dose antipsychotic. For months they had been manipulating me, making me doubt myself, convincing me that I was losing my mind. Then I found one more recording that completed the picture. December 19th. 2 days earlier. They were in my living room. They thought I was asleep upstairs. Brittany was holding papers. "These are the power of attorney forms," she said. Once Dr. Parker signs the competency assessment, we file these. By the end of January, you will have complete control over his finances. And then, Andrew asked, we list the house immediately. The market is strong. We should get $1.8 million after fees without any problem. His investment accounts transfer into the trust one established. You will be the sole trustee. We draw from it as needed. Andrew's voice sounded strained. What about Dad? Where does he go? Maplewood Care Center has an open bed. It is not luxury, but it is clean. The monthly cost is $3,500. Reasonable. There was silence. Then Andrew spoke again, and I heard his voice crack. I know this was my idea, but seeing him so confused and scared, Brittany cut him off. You are not backing out. We are too far in. Besides, you said yourself he was already declining. We are not doing anything that would not happen naturally in a few years. We are just helping the process. Andrew let out a long breath. Yeah, you are right. I just wish there was another way. There is not, she said. Now let us rehearse this again. When did you first notice his memory issues? I watched them practice their lies. Every fake incident, every staged moment, all of it carefully designed to paint me as a man who could not take care of himself. By the time the sun came up on December 22nd, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a notepad. My mind felt clearer than it had in weeks. I had stopped taking the pills the moment I heard that recording. Already the fog was lifting. I had just under 2 weeks before the appointment with Dr. Parker. 2 weeks to stop them. But I had to be careful. They could not know I had found out. The first thing I did that morning was drive to a walk-in clinic in Markham. It was far enough away that I would not run into anyone who knew me. I brought the pill bottle with me and told the doctor I thought the pharmacy might have made a mistake. The pills did not look right. The physician on duty was Dr. Hannah Lee, a young woman who looked barely old enough to have finished medical school. She examined the tablets closely and sent them to a laboratory for testing. 3 hours later, she called me back into her office. Her face was serious. The pills were lorazepam, a benzodiazepine used for anxiety. Strong medication. Each tablet was 2 milligrams. If someone had been giving me even half a tablet every day without my knowledge, especially combined with my real blood pressure medicine, it would explain everything. The confusion, the memory gaps, the dizziness, the trembling, the lost time. Dr. Lee asked if I wanted to contact the police. I told her not yet. I needed to make sure I did this right. She wrote me a new prescription for my real blood pressure medication and sent it to a pharmacy I had never used before. She also gave me information about elder abuse resources and strongly encouraged me to reach out for help. I thanked her. Then I walked out of that clinic knowing one thing for certain. I was not losing my mind. Someone had tried to take it from me. After leaving the clinic, my next stop was a lawyer. I had heard of Dr. William Parker before, but I had never used his services, and I did not want anyone connected to Brittany catching wind of what I was doing. So I went somewhere else. A small law firm in downtown Toronto called Murray & Associates had been recommended by an old friend of mine from my engineering days. The senior partner, Janet Murray, was in her mid-50s. Sharp eyes, straight posture, the kind of woman who did not waste words. I sat across from her desk and told her everything. I told her about the doorbell camera recordings, about the pills that were not mine, about the plan to have me declared mentally incompetent so my son could take control of my money. When I finished, she did not speak right away. She folded her hands on the desk and studied me carefully. Finally, she said something that made my stomach turn. Mr. Thompson, this is more common than you might think. Financial abuse of elderly people is an epidemic. Adult children, caregivers, romantic partners. The person responsible is often someone the victim trusts completely. Hearing that hurt more than anything else. Janet explained my options. I could go straight to the police with what I had. The recordings alone were serious. There could be charges for fraud, forgery, conspiracy, maybe attempted financial exploitation. But criminal cases moved slowly. If Andrew and Brittany realized I was onto them, they might try to destroy evidence or push their plan forward faster. Or we could take another route. We could gather everything, build a case so strong there would be no way out for them, then confront the situation when the time was right. She looked me in the eye. And then, she said, you decide whether your son made a terrible mistake or crossed a line he cannot come back from. I chose the second option. For the next 2 weeks, I acted. I continued to play the confused old man. It was not difficult. I had already spent months watching myself fall apart. Now I simply exaggerated it on purpose. I repeated questions. I mixed up dates. I pretended not to remember simple things. Meanwhile, I documented everything. Janet had someone set up a secure cloud storage account for me. I backed up every recording from the doorbell camera. I took photographs of the fake pills. I kept a written log of every conversation with Andrew and Brittany, including the exact words they used. But I did something else too. I started digging into Brittany Collins. It took some effort. Janet helped. What we found made the entire picture clear. Brittany had been married before. Twice. Her first husband was a man named Harold Whitaker. He was 78 when he died in a nursing home in Calgary 3 years ago. 6 months before his death, he signed power of attorney over to Brittany. After he passed, his children from his first marriage challenged the will. They claimed Brittany had manipulated their father and taken control of his finances. The case never went to full trial. It was settled quietly. Her second husband was a man named Thomas Porter. He was 65 when he died just over a year ago. Another contested will. Another out-of-court settlement. There was a pattern. Brittany targeted older men with money, usually widowers, sometimes divorced men. She charmed them, gained their trust, secured legal control, and then the money moved. In some cases, the men died. In others, they were placed into care facilities and heavily medicated. Andrew was not her partner in crime. He was being used. Or maybe I was the main target, and Andrew was simply the doorway she walked through. Janet contacted a colleague who specialized in financial fraud investigations. Within days, we uncovered more. Bank transfers from Thomas Porter's accounts in the months before his death that raised serious questions. Statements from a former nurse in Calgary who said Brittany's behavior around Harold Whitaker had seemed controlling and inappropriate. For at least 5 years, Brittany had been circling wealthy older men like a shark, and my son had brought her right into my home. January 5th finally arrived. Andrew came to pick me up for the appointment with Dr. Parker. I shuffled slowly to the car, pretending to forget where I had put my coat. I called Andrew by the wrong name twice. I asked if we were going to see Dr. Harper instead. I played my role perfectly. Brittany was already sitting in the back seat when I got in. She squeezed my hand gently. "Do not worry, Michael," she said sweetly. "Dr. Parker is very kind. He is just going to ask you a few questions." Her voice made my skin crawl. Dr. Parker's office was in a medical building in North York. The waiting room was full of elderly patients and their adult children. Everyone wore the same tired, concerned expression. When it was my turn, both Andrew and Brittany stood up to come in. Dr. Parker, a thin man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses, said only Andrew could join the assessment. Brittany had to wait outside. I noticed the tightness in her jaw when she sat back down. The evaluation lasted about an hour. Dr. Parker asked me to remember lists of words, to draw a clock showing a specific time, to subtract numbers in my head, to describe recent events. I made mistakes on purpose. Not too many, just enough to look believable. I confused dates. I forgot what I had eaten for breakfast. At one point, I called him Dr. Harper by accident. Andrew sat quietly the whole time. I tried to read his face. I thought I saw guilt there. Or maybe fear. After an hour, Dr. Parker asked Andrew to step outside so he could speak to me alone. This was the critical moment. Dr. Parker leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Thompson," he said, "I am going to be direct. Your son has provided extensive information about your condition. Miss Collins has given me detailed documentation of incidents. Wandering, confusion, unsafe behavior." He glanced at his notes. "Based on today's assessment, I do see some concerning signs. Memory gaps, difficulty with time orientation, some executive function challenges." I nodded slowly, staying in character. "In situations like this," he continued, "I would typically recommend a formal capacity evaluation with the possibility of guardianship. Your son appears very concerned about your safety." "I understand," I said softly. He tapped his pen against the desk. "However, something happened yesterday that complicates this." My heart skipped. This was not part of the plan, I thought. "Yesterday," he went on, "I received a call from a colleague of mine, Janet Murray. She asked pointed questions about my professional history with Miss Collins." I looked up at him. Janet and I had agreed to wait until after the appointment to reveal her involvement. Apparently, she had decided differently. Dr. Parker held my gaze. "I'm going to ask you something directly. Are you being pressured, coerced, or manipulated by anyone?" This was the moment. I could continue pretending, or I could tell the truth. I chose the truth. Yes, I said clearly, my voice steady. No confusion at all. My son and his fiancée have been drugging me for months. They replaced my medication with benzodiazepines. They have been staging incidents to make me appear incompetent so they can take control of my finances. Dr. Parker did not react dramatically, but I saw his grip tighten on his pen. Do you have proof? He asked. Yes. Video recordings. Laboratory confirmation of the medication switch. Financial documentation of her past behavior. My lawyer has copies of everything. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said something I did not expect. I have worked with Miss Collins before. She referred 3 elderly male clients to me over the past 2 years. All were eventually placed under guardianship. At the time, I believed I was helping vulnerable men. Now I am not so sure. He stood up. I am not going to recommend guardianship today. Instead, I will suggest additional testing at a separate facility. That will buy you time. But Mr. Thompson, you need to go to the police immediately. When Andrew and Brittany came back into the room, Dr. Parker delivered his conclusion calmly. He said he had concerns, but was not prepared to recommend immediate guardianship. He wanted further evaluation at a specialized center. For now, I could continue living independently with family support. I watched Brittany carefully. For just a split second, her polite smile disappeared. I saw anger flash across her face. Pure fury. Then it was gone, replaced with professional calm. Of course, she said smoothly. We want what is best for Michael. Andrew looked relieved. That told me something important. He was scared, maybe uncertain, maybe not completely lost. We left the building together. Out in the parking lot, Brittany said she needed to make a few phone calls and walk toward her own car. And that was when I decided it was time to find out if my son could still be saved. Andrew helped me into the passenger seat of his car. He walked around to the driver's side, sat down, and closed the door. But he did not start the engine. For a long moment, he just stared straight ahead at the windshield. Dad? He said quietly, not looking at me. I am sorry. My chest tightened. For what, son? He swallowed hard. His hands were gripping the steering wheel, but it was clear he was not seeing it. For not being strong enough to stop this sooner. I felt something shift inside me. Andrew, I said carefully, what are you talking about? He finally turned toward me. His eyes were red. I know you know, he said. The other night. You thought I was asleep, but I saw you. You were sitting in the living room looking at your phone. The doorbell camera footage. I saw your face. He took a shaky breath. You know what we did. I did not interrupt him. He kept going. It started small. After the divorce, I was drowning in debt. I felt like a failure. Brittany said maybe we could help you move into a care facility a little earlier than planned. She said we would just get your paperwork organized. She made it sound responsible, like we were helping. His voice cracked. But then it became something else. The pills. Moving your things around. Making you question yourself. Every time I tried to back out, she reminded me how much money I owed. How this was my only way out. She manipulated you too, I said softly. He shook his head. That is not an excuse. I am 43 years old. I knew it was wrong. I knew we were hurting you. I just wanted the money more than I wanted to be a good son. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Mom would be ashamed of me. Yes, I said honestly. She would. We sat in silence after that. Finally, I spoke. Andrew, you need to decide right now. You can walk away from me, get into Brittany's car, and try to hold on to whatever future you think you have with her. If you do that, I will go to the police and press charges. You will face prison. I'll let that settle. Or you can come with me to the police station and tell them everything. If you choose that, there is a chance, maybe a small one, that we can fix what you broke. He looked at me. Then he looked across the parking lot at Brittany. She was pacing near her car, talking fast into her phone. Even from a distance, I could tell she was planning something. Andrew whispered, I choose you, Dad. I want to fix this. That afternoon, we walked into the Richmond Hill police station together. We were there for 6 hours. I gave them everything. The camera footage, the pill bottle, the laboratory results, all the documentation Janet had collected about Brittany's history. Andrew confessed. The drugging, the staging, the plan to take control of my assets. The police acted quickly. By that evening, Brittany Collins was arrested at her apartment. They found more than we expected. Documents from her previous husband's estates, forged signatures, a laptop filled with emails detailing her plans, financial spreadsheets tracking assets. There were records showing she had not acted alone. Dr. Parker had not been part of it. He had been used, but others were involved. A lawyer who rushed estate transfers without asking enough questions. A real estate agent prepared to list my house the moment guardianship papers were signed. Even a care facility administrator who had ignored red flags when residents suddenly signed over control of their finances. The investigation uncovered 7 victims over 5 years. Millions of dollars stolen. Lives permanently damaged. Brittany was charged with fraud, theft, forgery, and elder abuse. Her attorney has since indicated she will likely plead guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence. She is facing between 10 and 15 years in prison. Andrew was charged as an accessory. Because he cooperated fully and provided key testimony, the prosecutor agreed to a plea deal. He received 2 years of probation, a significant fine, and 500 hours of community service with an elder advocacy organization. He is required to attend weekly therapy. He must also complete courses in financial literacy and ethics. We are rebuilding. Slowly. Some days, when I look at him, I see the man who slipped medication into my coffee. The man who almost took my freedom. Other days, I see the little boy who once handed me dandelions from the yard and told me they were the prettiest flowers in the world. Trust does not snap back into place. It rebuilds one brick at a time. I am still living in my house in Richmond Hill. I still drive. I handle my own finances. I make my own decisions. My mind is clear now. My real blood pressure medication keeps me steady. I made changes. I installed additional security cameras. I replaced every lock in the house. With Janet's help, I established an irrevocable trust to protect my assets. I joined a support group for survivors of elder financial abuse. I also volunteer now. I work with an organization that educates seniors about financial exploitation. I share my story openly. What happened to me is not rare. It happens every year to thousands of older adults. The people responsible are often family members, caregivers, or romantic partners. The very people we trust. It usually begins small. A loan that is never repaid. A new name added to a bank account. Pressure to sign documents without reading them carefully. If you are an older adult listening to this, hear me clearly. You have the right to control your own money, your own home, your own life. If something feels wrong, trust that feeling. Keep records. Store important documents safely. Never sign papers you do not fully understand. And tell someone outside the situation if you feel pressured. If you have aging parents, stay involved. Visit often. Ask respectful questions about finances. Watch for sudden changes. Be alert to new people who become deeply involved very quickly. Notice isolation. Financial abuse survives in silence. Many victims feel ashamed, or they protect the abuser because they love them. We need to talk about it openly. I was fortunate. I caught it in time. I had resources. Not everyone does. Dr. Harper still handles my checkups. She apologized for not recognizing the signs earlier, but I do not blame her. Brittany was skilled. She knew how to manipulate systems and people. As for Andrew, he is rebuilding his life honestly now. He found steady work with a marketing firm. He is paying down his debts the right way. He calls me every Sunday. Sometimes we meet for coffee. It is still awkward, still fragile, but it is real. Last week, he brought flowers to place at Carol's grave. We went together. Standing there beside her headstone, he broke down. "I am sorry, Mom," he whispered. "I almost became someone you would not recognize. I promise I will do better. I promise I will take care of Dad the right way." I put my hand on his shoulder. Carol always believed in second chances. I am trying to believe in them too. The cameras are still running at my house. I check them regularly. Not because I am afraid. Because I am careful. There is a difference. I am 72 years old. I do not know how many years I have left. But I know this. They will be lived on my terms. No one will ever take that from me again. If you see yourself in my story, reach out for help. Talk to a lawyer. Contact Adult Protective Services. Call an elder abuse hotline. You are not alone. You do not deserve to be betrayed by the people who should protect you. And if you have older relatives, pay attention. Ask hard questions. Stay present. Sometimes the greatest act of love is simply noticing. What happened to me was betrayal. But it was also a wake-up call. Now I use my voice. I support stronger protections for seniors. I advocate for clearer oversight in guardianship cases. I speak whenever I can. Carol used to say we are not defined by what happens to us, but by what we choose to do afterward. I choose to turn this into something that helps others. If my story helps even one person recognize the warning signs and take action, then maybe something good can come from what nearly destroyed me. And that, at this stage of my life, is purpose enough.